Money. It makes the world go round, and so flat earthers hate it. Loving it is the root of all evil, and studies suggest that it does not in fact serve as a replacement for a personality. Shocking development, I know, but it didn't stop the 2070s America as the nuclear age brought greater and greater levels of prosperity, military might, and the rise of supercorporations that upheld the backbone of the country's economy. Hello, everyone. I am the Hearth Guy, and it's time to remember the exact kind of people who led to this world becoming what it is. From the government-subsidized spawn of all things evil, Vault-Tec, to everyone's favorite morally questionable soda company, Nuka-Cola, and whatever the heck General Robotics was up to, these companies defined the landscape of the final pre-war years. But the one that continues to directly alter the fates and fortunes of the post-war world are the lingering creations of Robco Industries, and its chief executive, Robert Edwin House, once one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the world, as well as one of the biggest egos you could ever hope to meet. It takes a special kind of crazy, ambitious, and arrogant to stick your head into a Windows 10 and proclaim yourself the savior of mankind for the next 200 years. At least when other people do it, they're able to step outside without crumbling under the weight of their sins and 2 centuries of extensive radiation damage. But regardless, Mr. House has made his presence known in the 23rd century, transforming the city of Vegas, once his favorite town, into a veritable oasis in the wastes, and he doesn't intend to share it with either the NCR or the Legion who's come knocking. Whenever talking about those who influenced the fate of Vegas and the Mojave, it's impossible to ignore the long mechanical hand of Robert House, a man who started off with practically nothing, cheated out of his inheritance by a jealous half-brother after the sudden deaths of his parents, who managed to create his company and thrive in the chaos that was the pre-war decades. His company, Robco Industries, primarily dealt in robotics and software, being responsible for automated turrets, the acquiring and development of Repcon Aerospace, a certain giant robot the Brotherhood of Steel loves to use, smaller robots on wheels called Securitrons, and the very Pip-Boys that have become the cornerstone of every Fallout adventure. His fingerprints are practically everywhere, and naturally that is truer in the Mojave than anywhere else. It was his beloved city, and considering he knew exactly what was about to fall over all of mankind, he had plans to protect it and make it grander than ever. Predicting almost down to the day when the bombs would drop, he had defenses set up to protect the city, and for the most part he succeeded in sparing the core parts of Vegas from nuclear fire. But his miscalculation caused his plans to be behind schedule, with a certain platinum chip that was supposed to arrive the day after the bombs actually wound up falling, which would have upgraded the operating systems of his entire network as well as his Securitrons. And his internal software was not able to keep up with the strain, and for decades he battled crashes and power outages, only surviving through downgrading his software. The only question is, if Robert House can downgrade a city-spanning network, why can't I stop my computer from upgrading and bloating up all my RAM? House danced between being comatose, fixing his servers, and trying to gather his resources for a while, only beginning to make progress on his actual plans in the year 2274, when he began to send out his downgraded Securitrons to scout the area, and he began making contacts with certain tribes that had made a home in Vegas. 3 of these tribes accepted Mr. House's terms as the rising and returning landlord of Vegas, becoming his employees and running some of the major casinos, those being the Ultralux, the Tops, and Gamora, and in exchange he'd give them largely free rein with their own internal business and structures. These groups became the White Glove Society of mostly reformed cannibals, the chairmen, who are probably the classiest example of wannabe mafiosos you'll meet in this world, and the Omertas. The Omertas are the worst. We hate the Omertas in this house, and hope Gamora's fate is like that of its namesake. House also, probably, cheated the residents of Vault 21 out of their home, filling up most of it with concrete and letting only a fraction of it remain as a hotel. He then pushed anyone else out of the Central Strip, causing the official settlements around Central Vegas to become more clearly defined as well, those being places like Freeside under the Kings, West Side, North Vegas Square, and such, while other tribes like the Great Khans, habitual punching bags that they are, were expelled entirely from the city. So, officially, the free economic zone of Vegas was established with House as the CEO and administrator, a libertarian state where economic growth and pursuit of personal wealth is the goal. The lives of the people are not House's concern so long as they adhere to the simplest rules he puts in place, many of which are fairly straightforward, such as no killing, where other people can see, no breaking the internal rules of each casino, and no interfering with how the House does business. This isn't a democracy. This is not a military. It's a business, taking the term social contract rather seriously. Being a citizen under the free economic zone means signing a contract with Mr. House to obey his rules. No ifs, ands, or buts. However, he's also not interested in being a king or god. So if you live your life as a good employee or just stay out of his way, he'll allow you the greatest mercy he knows: indifference. On the other hand, if he signs a contract with you, you'd better believe he will follow it to the letter. He shows great respect for such obligations even when it would benefit him otherwise, such as restricting the access of his own Securitrons from the casinos without express permission from the three families. Even seemingly minor things, like refusing to reveal the name of the White Glove Society from before they became one of the families, is respected by House. If you ever get him to sign a piece of paper, he will never betray the words written on it. All this was done in time for a very important contract: the Treaty of Vegas, with the arrival of the NCR from the west and the Legion from the east. Realizing that one was objectively the better option for money and manpower, House made a deal that outrageously benefited him. The NCR would bleed themselves dry with manpower and money defending the Mojave and giving the Legion its fair share of black eyes, while House gained the time he needed to prepare for pushing both of them out of his nation-state. And of course, the money the NCR folks spent gambling their lives away in his casinos didn't hurt either, or the commissions he earned from NCR traders trying to make a quick buck as vendors. This time and money helped him find the platinum chip, and begin an elaborate plan to bring it back to him under the noses of all possible enemies. Except for one that came from within. Benny, leader of the chairmen, figured out House was after the chip, and with ambition that rival House's and in-game cutscenes we all recognize, he derailed the House's whole plan and the history of the Mojave and America itself by doing what you should never do: make a mailman angry. Had he gotten the chip, his Securitrons could have been upgraded and ready to fight with even the NCR or Legion, as their firepower and available numbers would dramatically increase, since an entire army is stationed beneath the current Legion fort. And no matter the numbers of either, there comes a certain point where a TV shooting an endless stream of grenades and missiles becomes a bit too much to handle. Then he'd get to work rebuilding humanity in the style he thinks is best, progressing mankind back to where it was and beyond in, as he claims, just over a century. And if anyone could do it, well, as much as I hate to say it, he might be the one. His technology has persisted even 200 years after the Great War, and his schemes have gotten him this far. Who's to say, with nothing standing in his way, that he wouldn't have all the time and resources needed, especially with a fattened NCR remaining as a customer for Vegas and whatever goods the Mojave may have after he claims control of the dam and Lake Mead, as power and water are ever precious in this world. Well, one of those people who'd say that is me, because while from a purely pragmatic perspective Mr. House's plan is not terrible, honestly, it has got a far better chance than, say, the Legion of having long-lasting success, but I can't ignore the glaring downsides, and how it would negatively impact everyone involved. One severe problem with House's proposed future is that even before it begins, it breeds rebellion and betrayal. Look at every single one of the three families. Each one are rotting on the inside and poised to make trouble for old Robert. The White Glove Society has a dissenting element that's gone back to cannibalism, and should the worst come to, they convince the rest of the society to go with it, not only breaking their contract with House, but potentially cutting off the flow of food to the Strip, since they kidnap and may even eat the son of a prominent NCR Brahmin Baron. Mr. House may not eat, but all his employees do. The Omertas are conspiring with the Legion to attack the Strip and oust the rest of the families, and House remains entirely unaware of it unless the courier intervenes. although the courier could also make it worse, but the courier could help cause most of these things to happen anyway. And Benny would probably be halfway to running Vegas if it weren't for the courier coming out of the grave to teach him to triple tap next time. The entirety of Yes Man's existence and what can be done with him could just as easily have been accomplished by Benny, and it originally was supposed to be. Although, admittedly, with a little less ease since the NCR and Legion aren't as directly interested in Benny as they are with the walking narrative non sequitur that is the courier. House is also playing a dangerous game with the NCR. Obviously, he doesn't have to worry about them so long as the Legion is around, but they're still out to assassinate him. Just because the courier was the most convenient option doesn't mean they aren't trying to get the same outcome. Would it work? Unlikely, but there is a reason every faction that isn't himself requires you to kill him. He holds the keys to Vegas, and everyone sees it. No matter how improbable it is, if he dies, then the entire house of cards comes toppling down. And if someone, not even the courier, were to mess up a single part of his plan, like, destroying the army of Securitrons that he has underneath the fort, then he is cooked. Also, without that upgrade, the Securitrons aren't outlasting a frontal assault from either enemy faction. You could even argue that the three families could pull it off if they banded together, and all have shown a tendency to disobey House. Truth be told, those version 1 TV Roombas are not all that scary if you have enough people aimed at them. Or if, the Brotherhood of Steel, you can match his tech pound for pound. Another reason why House wants you to blow them up, of course, but supposing you miss any, then even a single squad could be a consistent problem for a pack of Securitrons. Heck, any smart enough pack of humans could likely find a way to take advantage of Securitron programming. Robots in Fallout are repeatedly shown to not be that hard to hack or undermine. And with an entire army built on the backs of them, the downgraded versions aren't posing a major threat in the long term. If they're upgraded, sure. But many of the hardware issues that plague them are going to remain, and a single pulse grenade can toast them all the same. Hey, that rhymed. Which is a problem if the NCR ever decide to outsource weapons productions to a group like the Van Graffs, who are known for their more technologically spicy weapons. Suffice to say, as is the trend in New Vegas, House is playing with fire if he doesn't have the courier on his side. And if the NCR ever manage to find a way to get rid of him, courier or not, they're doing that in a heartbeat. For all of his talk of centuries of planning and the time he'd have to raise up humanity, in the present he's working with a time limit. The moment any of the other forces, big or small, aren't worried about everyone else, they are gunning for his shriveled head. Speaking of, another flaw is the proposed immortality of House. We don't actually know how reliable this device he's plugged into is. We can walk up to it and press a couple buttons to undo his entire operation, and only a few pulse weapons to clear the way to get there. Breaking into the Lucky 38 would be an obvious hassle, one the courier doesn't have to worry about. But once you're inside, it's kinda game over for Ol' House. Putting that aside, we have no clue how stable his condition could be, since just a few minutes outside could be enough to annihilate his weakened immune system, and whether he likes it or not, metal and glass can wear away too. Supposing he does win the gamble for Vegas and starts sending people into space or whatever, that won't fix whatever long-term degradation may be on its way, or has already occurred. He doesn't seem like the most stable person sometimes, and though that could be just his ego talking, it's not impossible to think that his mind is slowly going too. Consider that the geniuses of Big Mountain couldn't stop their brains from slowly rotting away inside their jars. If that's the case, one would have to hope that House wouldn't make a similar mistake. That being said, he might be uniquely sensitive to another problem sure to appear. The tunnelers of the Divide, who are, by Ulysses' estimate, already making their way to Vegas. And with House and his entire operation rooted in one place at the moment, he could be more vulnerable to the tunnelers' arrival than any other alternative. The NCR and the Legion can always pull back, and an independent Vegas at least has the courier with experience dealing with them. But House? He's not just unaware of them, but if the tunnelers do what tunnelers do, his underground facilities could be sitting ducks, especially since the generator of the Lucky 38 powers his entire rig and preservation pod or whatever it is. Another Divide-related problem could be if the courier decides to bomb out the Long 15 and cut off House's biggest customer from the Mojave, crippling any sort of export-based economy he was hoping to benefit from. As a counterpoint to that, based on the show and the NCR being in shambles, House may benefit tremendously, since the Mojave could be a more reliable source of resources and just safe land in general. At least until the tunnelers, but you get my point. As most people flock to his oasis in the wasteland, the biggest problem of his regime will rear its head: the people. Believe it or not, when a large group of people feel as though they could have a better life if they just got rid of a single obstacle in their way, they will absolutely do it. Compared to the NCR, which keeps up in Arab democratic ideals, or the Legion, which brutally punishes those who step out of line, the hands-off approach of Mr. House, combined with the dog-eat-dog economic landscape he'd allow to thrive, would create a populace that more than likely think they could do better without him. The Omertas and Benny already think that. The Kings think that. West Side thinks that. And the list just keeps growing. Dissatisfaction being met by the cold indifference of a faraway autocrat isn't usually met with shrugging your shoulders and getting back to work. Benny is a prime example. For all his talk of not policing people's lives, House changes his tune real fast once it gets in the way of what he wants. And if what people want and what the House wants begins to clash, specifically over and over, dissatisfaction will turn to resentment, which will turn to outright disobedience and rebellion. What makes more democratic/Republican systems work, even for all their flaws, is that the people feel at least a part of their voice is being heard, that they aren't totally shut out from dictating the larger fate of their nation and society. It's when this is corrupted that it starts to fail, and when the will of the people is ignored wholesale, you create the perfect breeding ground for revolution. No matter what advancements House promises and provides, it'll mean nothing if the people don't feel like they benefit from it. And when that day comes, outnumbering him, they will overcome whatever stands between them and him. The very same things that inherently make Mr. House appealing and a potentially successful option are the same things that come back to bite him and his entire dream. Not to mention that he just doesn't tend to inspire loyalty in people, as we stated before, and he's shown a lack of flexibility at times when it counts. Sure, he can adapt when he must, but when it comes down to predicting and leading people, he's repeatedly shown that he's just not capable of making the very subjects that make up his utopia trust or believe in him. And while he may follow every contract to the letter, not everyone is him, no matter how much he may want them to be. I mean, isn't that exactly what happens every time another faction is chosen by the courier? For all his offers and promises, and even the gifts he may give, he is unable to stop a single person who feels that they can't trust him, or that someone else can do better. He's a single man trying to direct all of humanity, which means that there is no one to take up his legacy, no backup plans for himself, because he can't imagine a world where mankind can thrive that doesn't include him. A lone beacon of supposed enlightenment that will quickly be forgotten once it's snuffed out. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to support the channel and stay up to date. A shout out to all my patrons and channel members as seen here for your constant support. Really appreciate you guys. Especially my newest patron, Iron Force 2033, which I can only assume is the love child prequel of Cyberpunk 2077 and Hearts of Iron we didn't know that we needed. With all your help, I will one day ascend to a virtual overlord myself, and preferably not get beat to death by a mailman with a golf club. Morbid statement aside, there's just one more major faction to talk about, so stay tuned for next week's video. And remember, I have been the Hearth Guy, and I will see you all next time around the hearth. You know what? All this nation building and taxing and mass slaughtering of my enemies and sometimes citizens doesn't look that hard. I bet I could do it. Welcome everyone to Hearthlandia. If anyone asks about it, don't explain anything. Don't even think about it. Snitches get stitches, and if I had my way, I'd take you out back and give you the Joshua Graham treatment.